Have you got your drinks ready? I have a cup of tea. Steve, what have you got this week?
I would like, well, actually, I've got a glass of red wine.
I'm glad to see it. and Phil, our Quizmaster General, what have you got?
Just a small lager.
Very nice, San Miguel, very good. And so pleased to welcome this week Fiona McLean Bushell, who is, thank you, pronounced very well. Fiona is the lead strings tutor at the Trinity Laban Junior Conservatoire. And it's brilliant to see you here because Fiona's going to share with us today some top tips on remote chamber music, virtual chamber music. So that's great. But one thing I wanted to say before we started was that top tip of the week is phone your instrument insurance company. This is actually coming from Paul Silverthorne, who used to be the principal viola at the London Symphony Orchestra. And he says, phone your insurance company and tell them that you're at home and that you're not traveling with your instrument. It's not going in the car anywhere. It can reduce your premiums massively. So everybody go and do that after this exciting webinar. So first of all, Fiona, perhaps you could tell us a bit about you. You've been isolating now for quite a while. You've been in lockdown longer than most of us, haven't you?
Yeah, that's right. What I've been doing is just getting to grips with what online tuition means and how we actually go about doing it, both with individual tuition and ensemble delivery, with my own private students and also with our fantastic students at Trinity Laban. And the chamber music thing started about probably 3-4 weeks ago when my personal lockdown started. And I got some of my more advanced students, the older ones, the year 11s and 13s together, just for technique class on Zoom, just to see what would happen if we actually try and do some technical work. And so once the initial kind of, hi, great to see you, haven't seen you, all this stuff went on, we set about on a G major 4-octave scale on Zoom. And it was probably the best G major 4-octave scale we've ever had, just with four students in a techniques class, which we would run anyway. But the feedback from it was really, really interesting. And some of the feedback was, they loved seeing everybody, but they didn't feel quite so inhibited playing their G major 4-octave scale to a screen, to their friends, as they would have done if we'd been doing it in a real-time setting. So that started me thinking about how maybe this could work for chamber music. So I set up a series of mini faculty meetings, and we have 30 of us in the JT string faculty. So I set up a series of meetings with all the team just to say, I had this idea for chamber music. What do you think about chamber music? What can we do? So over a series of 3-4 weeks, we came up with all sorts of ideas, all of which will work. But the one which I've been trying out over the last couple of weeks in the holidays with my own ensembles, follows this rough pattern, which is we set up the meeting, which is on Teams or Zoom, doing it through sending out the invitations, people log in the appropriate way, and we set up the initial thing, we get there, we talk about what we're going to do. We maybe just rehearse 8 bars, and those 8 bars can be incredibly productive. So each person will play their part, their 8 bars, and the other 3 are muted. They listen to the person who's live and then give them feedback, which is great in itself. And we found that they're much more happy to give feedback when it's just them giving feedback kind of one-to-one rather than watching each other giving feedback. So that's a learning process as well. Then that goes round. And so the time you've got 4 people doing that on 8 bars and getting quite a lot of information, the difference is huge already just to the individual players. So then what we do is we take it in turns to keep one of them live and the other 3 are muted. So the person who's live plays and the other 3 play along. And that process goes round, so all 4 of them have a chance to be the live person with the other 3 being muted. And what's been really interesting, I thought it was a fluke at first, so I had to try it a few times over a few weeks with different combinations of quartets. You can see they're not in sync, but they can't hear that they're not in sync, because all they're hearing is the person that they're playing alongside with. And that's been brilliant. And in terms of them learning a piece in depth and in detail and understanding how all the parts work together, I think it's going to be a really useful learning journey. So that's the first phase of how we're proposing to roll it out.
Yeah, I was just thinking, actually, it'd be fantastic to really hear all those individual parts one by one, without having, if you were in a normal room situation with a string quartet and you said to somebody, play the first movement on your own, I mean, you just wouldn't do it, would you? But actually, it's a great opportunity to get to learn all those intricate, second violin parts, for instance. Everything tends to be dominated by the first violin, and suddenly you hear all these amazing, interesting things. It must be a real light bulb moment for them.
It has been, and that's the feedback I've had, is that they've loved hearing how the other parts work and how the other parts fit with theirs. And they all have a copy of the score as well now. They've all downloaded scores. They can see the jigsaw, and they're beginning to really get a feel for the whole piece. But I think the most wonderful bit of feedback was the fact they felt more confident. In the string quartet setting, they felt more confident just playing along with one other part. Another really interesting point that came up was they said they could hear better because they were just listening to one other part, and they weren't being diverted to different places. And so by just sort of paring it down to two strands, if you like, their awareness of their part is much greater, and their awareness of the other parts is much greater. So I'm hoping when we come back together and we'll stick to the repertoire we're learning over this next term, that they'll have a really good insight into how string quartet writing works as well, from a compositional point of view.
Having come from a quartet background of coaching, amateurs and student quartets for 20 years or more, the one thing you always go on about is getting to know all the other parts. And of course, now we've suddenly got in a situation where they're having to do that. So there are some nice benefits there. And I think what you're saying resonates really well. I think it's a great positive thing that we can make out of this situation with chain music. And just having the score, I mean, that's fantastic. That's a thing that gets missed a lot of the time.
That makes a huge difference. And we've been, the guitar department as well, when I talk about the string faculty being huge, the guitar teachers have been working on something very similar with their techniques classes, where they'll set up a classroom with all the guitarists there, and then they'll be either playing along with the tutors or listening and critiquing each other. So it was really interesting over the last 3 or 4 weeks to get feedback from all the team, and we were all thinking in remarkably similar ways, which is great.
Yeah.
When we all get back to normal, whatever normal is, how much of this online learning do you think you will incorporate into the day-to-day when we're back to normal? What will carry through, do you think?
I think we're looking at a completely new landscape, to be honest. I think the way we've always done it is under review. There's huge benefits to the way we've always done it, which is why we've always done it. But there's real benefits to having new ways of thinking. And I was discussing this with one of the team earlier on today. My sense very much is that we are evolving right now. And what's really important to how we're doing things with our string faculty is everything we're doing, we're trying to document it and say, this worked, this didn't work, let's look at this again. So we've actually got, if you like, a package, we've got a plan for what's current now. It's not to say it will be current in 3 to 6 months, because I expect in 3 to 6 months there'll be different technologies, there'll be different things that we'll have to talk about, and it would be great to see where we all are again in 3 to 6 months. My sense is there will be a lot more online delivery. Obviously, I mean, it's great to do face-to-face work, and we all acknowledge that's a very, very good way to do it. And having been told we must go to work, we must go to work, we must do things, and now being told you must not go to work, you must stay at home, it's kind of upended everybody's thinking. And I think not just within the arts sector, I think globally, people are going to be thinking, well, actually, we've been just as, if not maybe more productive at home. What's the mileage in that? So I think it's great in the sense with the rehearsal element, going back to the quartet thing and the technique classes, that I'm hoping that we'll keep going as well. We can add these in as maybe even as and when we're able to deliver these. The detail that we can go into because of the listening skills that are required. I feel the listening skills that are required are much more intense when we're doing things online. I think the students probably get a lot more tired working online because they're having to concentrate in a way that they don't associate with learning. They're used to gaming, they're used to doing all that stuff, which is one facet, but the minute you say, okay, 4-octave scale, they're having to think in a completely different way, they're having to listen in a completely different way, and they're having to react in a completely different way because they can't butt in and interrupt. They have to wait to not all talk at once, like we're doing. We're used to this way now, so we all take it in turns and nobody talks over each other. It's been fascinating in rehearsals because in some cases, when they're so excited, they just can't wait to share their ideas. They realise they're going to have to just wait, listen to the person who's making the point, retain their information, then impart their information. So I think the listening skills are going to improve tremendously, which can only be good when we come back.
Fiona, has there been any change in the lesson time? Is it still whatever period of time is scheduled on the face-to-face? Are you applying that to online, or is it slightly more or slightly less?
We are treating everything at the minute as a pilot. Tomorrow is our first day back. Tomorrow is a huge pilot day. My view is that we have to be flexible. We've got to bear in mind there's so many areas in the UK that maybe the connectivity isn't great. And so if you're supposed to have an hour and you can only get 40 minutes, then we make arrangements with the students to catch up with that in whatever the best fit for people is. We're trying to, the aim is that individual lessons are either 40 minutes or an hour with us, and we stick to that. If it's just too much and there's overload, then we just have discussions. We treat each case on an individual basis, and we work around whatever we can through discussions with parents and the actual students themselves. But the aim is to keep, chamber music, 40 minutes, working in the way we're working, it's going to fly. It has already. It's gone. So.
Sorry, I was doing the rude thing of interrupting there. I was just going to say, we all know about a fantastic selection of books that you're using for chamber music, Liz Partridge's series. Could you just tell us quickly about that? Because I think it's a really, really fantastic resource.
It's fantastic. So in addition to the work we're doing, as I've outlined, as one way of addressing chamber music rehearsals, we're looking at other platforms of repertoire. One is Partplay, which we're very, very excited to use and suggest to our kids and their teachers. The other one is Liz Partridge's 4 Strings, which it came out of a desire to have music which is maybe a bit more contemporary in the repertoire. And so Liz has put this fantastic collection of books together. And the Tippett Quartet have recorded them. There's all sorts of information coming out about them. You download the music, you can access it in much the same as Partplay, and you can mute one of the parts so you can play along with the other 3. And there's also double bass parts which can be downloaded as well. So we'd love to be utilising these as well for the ensembles.
Another great thing about that selection of books, I think, is the fact that all the parts are fairly equally difficult. You haven't got, some bored cellist sitting there, or, a panicking first violin, or they're all pretty much sort of the same level, right? So I think that's a rather special thing.
No, I think it's great, and the books are really, really well put together. So everything is a level which is attainable, readable, and you can get an awful lot out of them. And they're great pieces as well. So There's lots of information coming up about that. I think there's a Facebook page as well. I've sent a link through to Sheila.
So perhaps Sheila could pop that on the Facebook page for us now, so you can all see it.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. I'd like to just briefly, we've got a few questions coming in about general online teaching and quality of sound and freezing and glitching and all these things that we're all struggling with. I don't know if all of you are aware of this. I'm sure not all of you are, but there's some fantastic audio software out there that you can use in a mixed capacity. So what a lot of us have been doing in the last couple of weeks have been splitting the screen or using two devices and having video on one and audio on the other. The audio software that I've been loving using is called Source Connect now. There's a little video I put together to help you get on board with it so that you can understand it. It's a very early version of the software, so it's not mega sort of smooth and easy to get into. But once you're in there, oh my God, it's amazing. The relief. Really, really, really. Please go and try it out if you can. But you have to have Google Chrome as your browser. You have to do it from a laptop or a desktop. You can't do it at the moment from a mobile phone or a tablet, as far as I'm aware. They do have their own version, which is video and audio together. I and my friends have had problems with the synchronization on that, which is why we're using two separate things. We're using one for video and one for audio. But, you know, things change and you need to experiment a bit and have a go. But I cannot recommend it strongly enough. I think it's really worth persevering with, because actually you start getting proper quality sound through. And once that happens, even if the picture's glitching a bit, suddenly you literally feel like you're in the room with them, don't you, Steve? We tried it the other day, didn't we?
There were going to be a lot of changes over the next few months, obviously, because everybody, all the companies involved in this area are throwing a lot of time and effort into development. And of course, with sound, there's no real reason why we can't get very good quality sound, because it takes up a lot less bandwidth, even at a high quality, than video does. So I think that is going to be one of the things that, if there's enough users trying to get products that have the quality sound, there's enough impetus, I think, for the manufacturers, the developers to do that. And it should be possible. You know, you can't get around the lag. There's still always going to be the lag problem, the latency problem. But there's no reason why we can't expect to have, you know, high bandwidth quality stereo sound coming through a lot of devices, and that's beginning to happen, as we've seen with the Source Connect. Yeah. And I think that there'll be more and more of those, you know.
Edgar Gabriel's hi Edgar. He's just asking, is it Source Connect it's called, and does it improve the sound of the student as well as the teacher? Yes. You have to have headphones on. Forgot to mention that. Got to wear headphones. Not an option not to, sadly. If you have one in one ear and one dangling out, you know, you wear your earbuds like that, tuck it down your jumper, the one that's dangling, because otherwise you get this echo going round from microphone to speakers all the time. So just make sure you have the headphones on, Edgar, and it's absolutely fantastic. You wouldn't believe the quality you can get through. You know, I mean, this computer's 9 years old. Don't tell anyone, and it's fine. It's great. I sound amazing on it, don't I, Phil? Yes, Phil. What?
We all sound amazing till we start playing instruments.
Well, you know.
I was going to ask Nicole, is it free or is there a fee for it?
It's free at the moment. I don't think it will be forever. Right now, it's totally free to use. You can have up to 10 people in a room at one time with it. So you could have your class. And in fact, we were talking about this before we came and joined you guys. We were having a little, you know, sneaky aperitif before having a chat. And we were talking about the value of having group classes with, you know, if you're teaching in an institution. I mean, I teach at the Junior Academy, and obviously Fiona's at Trinity Laban and stuff. So we have a community there already. You know, the kids come to us to have their one-to-one lessons, and then they will have chamber music and ensembles and orchestra and all sorts of things. But if you're teaching in private practice, particularly if you're maybe struggling to sort of get your students online and getting them to try it, why not offer a weekly group class? And you can do this with Source Connect, you can do it with Zoom, you can do, you know, all these things. You could have, you know, a new aspect to your teaching, which then actually you might afterwards, after lockdown, it may well continue. I mean, if you look at Suzuki, they do that, don't they? You have your single lesson, your solo lesson, and then you have group every week. I think there's a lot to be said for it. Did you ever do anything like that, Steve?
I never did Suzuki classes at all, but I've worked with many players that have done it, you know, and I think I did group classes at the academy, Sydney Griller was famous for them. They were a formative experience, shall we say. While we're thinking about sort of times and what we keep after lockdown, what we keep of this online stuff, I've had on my other screen here, I have an email come through from Dale, who is sort of asking all these thoughts we've had about things changing in the future and what the results may be. But he's saying what will give, because basically saying, given that there's not enough time to teach pupils in ensembles the notes most of the time, where is this energy and time going to come from? And it's a good point, you know. I mean, timetables are notoriously inflexible things, and you know, so it's going to be difficult, I guess, to get the balance post COVID. Between the standard ways of teaching and these new ideas.
But I mean, I reckon, you know, obviously lockdown is going to end gradually as far as we can tell. And I wonder what legacy it will leave with, you know, why does it have to only be once a week? You know, why does your contact with the teacher only have to be once a week? Why does your ensemble rehearsal only have to be once a week? You know, it could buy time where people can practice together online, especially now if they can do it as an ensemble, Fiona. They could have an extra rehearsal on their own, especially if they've got a big concert coming up. Can you imagine them doing that, Fiona?
I think they would. I think some of them probably already are. They've probably got together on platforms that we wouldn't use to just rehearse and just make music together. And I think that's great. I think the creativity side of things, I think it's going to erupt. I think we're going to see lots of new ideas coming through. And I think they're to be welcomed. There is no plan for what's going to happen next week, 2 weeks' time, 3 weeks' time, in terms of new technology that comes out and new ideas that evolve. And I think that is the key word. We are evolving.
Yeah.
Are you evolving, Phil? What about that penguin?
That's a new like the penguin
webinar.
My new friend. Well, I think it's clear that the rule book's been thrown out the window, hasn't it? And it's a great opportunity for us to once again just look at how we teach, look at what's coming through, because as Fiona says, we're discovering things every week that we didn't know were out there. I'm sure there are dozens and dozens of teams frantically working in the background, trying to find funding and employ teams of coders with the next new big thing. So these improvements will be incremental, but I think gather pace over the next few months. So I think we just need to keep open minds and always keep on the lookout for the next new thing.
I think our thinking with putting performances together is that maybe towards half term, our quartets will have recorded their individual parts at an agreed tempo, and we'll be able to put it together in some form, audio, video, whatever that might be. There's all sorts of ways we're thinking about how that could be done. I know certainly our amazing admin team in the office at Trinity are working flat out to make sure that things get done and that recordings can happen and that layering can happen. And just like to say a huge thank you right now to Tabby and Tim and Jack and Alex and Ron for phenomenal, gargantuan amounts of work that have gone into actually making sure that we can deliver what we're going to deliver tomorrow, including our tinies, our string time. And these are the children that they're great. These are the ones that start in teenies and come the way through to string time and come through a whole raft of amazing experiences. And they're going to have online Dalcroze lessons, they're going to have online technique classes, they're going to have all sorts of online live and pre-recorded stuff. So the amount of work that's gone into making sure that everything is as happy and positive and forward thinking as we can be, it's great. And it's actually quite exciting to actually be thinking about all these new ways of doing things.
Yeah.
Thinking back, Steve, when we were talking about the technique classes with Sydney Griller and various other things that we went through at the academy. But it's all good, and it helps you think in a different way now.
Yeah, I think it's obviously it's great that you've got this great admin team behind you, and obviously in a junior department like that, that's fantastic. Of course, a lot of our teachers, all the members of ESTA, are on their own with private practices and haven't got that support. But I guess that's in a way one of the things we're trying to fill here a little bit is to be a support team behind our members and actually get some of this information out there to, to help them discover what's useful for their individual needs.
I'll tell you what, one added bonus I think is going to be when we come out of this, imagine the thrill of doing a writ. Right? Imagine. Never before will it have been such an exciting moment that you can just look at someone and writ. Seriously though, you're going to start to appreciate why live music is so fantastic. And it's brilliant we're doing all this stuff online, but I think it's going to give that excitement when we get back, when we do get back to sort of doing it in the same room, going to make people appreciate it more, isn't it? Do you think, Phil, will you appreciate it more?
Well, I think it'll take a while for us to get used to the live sound again as well. Everything's coming out of a speaker at the moment and compressed various qualities, and all of a sudden we'll learn to listen in a new way again. That'll be exciting.
I was thinking that it would have been quite fun to have been locked down with my quartet, and then I thought actually perhaps it wouldn't. It might possibly be the end of the quartet, I suspect, after 6 weeks or however many.
The end of your marriage as well, Steve.
Would have been great for rehearsal, but not necessarily 24/7.
So just before we finish, Steve, you've been very, you're always busy. You're the busiest man I know, apart from Phil. But tell us what you've been doing this week.
Well, most of the last few days has been spent putting together the Esther UK virtual orchestra. So we asked people to film themselves playing the first movement of Ina Kleiner along to my quartet doing it on the Part Play website. And we had just over 40 entries. So most of the last 2 days, quite a lot of hours, have been spent pulling those all together and making them into a little video. And that is going to premiere in 18 minutes time on YouTube. And the link was sent out in Sheila's email that included the link to this webinar. So hopefully if you've had that email from Sheila, you've got the link. Do join us. I'm looking over here. There's 11 people waiting for the premiere at the moment, which is nice.
Pop it in the Facebook page if she hasn't done it already. She is very organised.
She's very organised. She'll sort of, if she hasn't put it on Facebook, it will be there instantly. So do come and join us. And so the premiere will be at 7:45. It takes about 4 minutes and 40 seconds, I think. And after which, they have a little test card. So when you get there at 7:45, there's a little, YouTube put a little test card on for premieres. It's quite fun. So a couple of minutes later it plays, and there's some chat window so you can send us some comments in the chat. And in that chat window, I will be putting a link to a Zoom meeting after the premiere, just for a little virtual party after the premiere for anybody who'd like to come and join us. So have a look out in the chat for that link.
Bring a glass of wine.
I already have one.
Or a tea or something, and click on the link and come and join us, meet the team.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, everyone. It's Friday night. It's the highlight of my week, I tell you. It's so nice to see you all. Thanks very, very much for joining us in our mad webinar. Fiona, very grateful.
Yeah, huge good luck to Fiona for their first day back tomorrow. Hope it goes really well.
Yes.
All the junior colleges who are starting back tomorrow. Good luck. May the force be with you and all that. And thank you, of course, also to Steve and Phil. And we'll see you again at 7 o'clock next Friday night. Stay safe, everybody. Bye.